Hey everybody, on my main channel, I'm known for talking about movies, but another thing about me is that I like to get through as many books as is possible. I like to be exposed to as many new ideas and different sorts of ideas as I can to keep my mind fresh and creative and energized and all those types of things. So like last year, my YouTube channel had crazy success, and I believe one of the reasons that that happened was that I finished over 60 books. And going into this year, I don't think I'm going to be able to finish as many books this year as I did last year, but I want to try and get through a whole lot of books this year as well. And one of the things along the way as I do that is that I thought that it would be fun, interesting, whatever word you want to use for it, to keep a record of the books that I finish here on this channel, give my own little mini reviews, recommendations, and lessons learned, all of that fun stuff every single month. Kind of go through them over here. So the big question people always get is, how are you able to read so many books while having a YouTube channel, a wife, kids, a full-time job? How do you do that? And the big thing is that I'm huge on audiobooks. I have a regular book I carry around with me when I have time to pull out an old paper book and flip through it. And then I listen to audiobooks in my car and my work truck all day long. So it's all Audible is the answer to how I'm able to do so much. And I'm big fan of their stuff. It's a huge archive. It's like $15 a month and you get 1 credit from them. 1 credit equals 1 book. Plus they have sales constantly if you're a member, discounts, all that fun stuff. If you want to try Audible, I have an affiliate link you can try down below in the description, audibletrial.com/Sean Chandler, down below in the description. You can get 1 free ebook if you use my link. Helps me out a little bit. So even if you're like, I don't know if I'm an audiobook person, it helps me out a good bit if you give it a try. But that's the way I'm able to get through so many books is Audible. So I do recommend you try it out. And like I said, I want to talk through all the books that I'm going through this year. So let's get started with the first book I finished this year, Save the Cat by, I believe, Snyder. If you don't know what this is, it's a very famous book on screenwriting. Came out about 15 years ago. And essentially what he's trying to do is give you all the tricks, all of the things you need to know to write a hit film. Now, on a level of analysis of popular cinema, especially in the era where he was selling scripts to the 90s, he has great analysis of the structures, the templates, the tropes, the things that all the movies seem to have that audiences seem to like. It's great analysis. So if you want the structure of a hit Hollywood movie, it's great for checking out for that purpose. And as someone that talks about and reviews movies, in that regards, it gives you a great list of things to be looking for in movies. It gives you a vocabulary for the things that you've been seeing in movies. It's great for all those things. And that's the analysis side. The other half of it is him telling you what some good scripts are, him telling you how to write a good script. And it's like the most cynical thing I've ever read in my entire life, as he just he goes through it and is describing, if you want to sell your script, this is what you got to put in there. If you want your script to make money, this is what you got to do. There's no regard for creativity, telling a great story, anything like that. It's like, these are the ingredients. This is the formula for a hit film. In which case, good analysis for looking for things, but kind of almost made me sick to my stomach. And I'm a person that likes big, generic, blockbuster type movies. I'm like the types of movies he's describing, but he takes it so far down this path of a hit movie is this, that it's gross at times, some of the stuff. Like there's a section in it where he just goes off on how the script for Memento sucks. And then he goes, check out the script for Miss Congeniality. Check out the script for Blank Check that I wrote. And you're like, what? Memento sucks? But Miss Congeniality, Blank Check, these are the great scripts. I don't even know how to process what you're saying right now. And so if you're someone that's looking to get into screenwriting, if you're like me and talk about movies on the internet or something like that, it's worth checking out because it does give you such a list, a great vocabulary. It's a book that a lot of people have read, and so the jargon he uses is useful. It has a pragmatic value to it, but his actual applications of his analysis, I are just grotesque, shockingly appalling, unbelievably out of date. Like, it sounds like he only wants you to sell scripts back in 1997 or something like that. So very weird book with an odd mix of everything. Second book I finished of 2019, the book Drive. This is one that's I've kind of had on my radar for years because I watched this video. A link to it down below in the description, or actually up here in the card, I'll send you to it. And it's a 10-minute summary of the book where they kind of draw on the whiteboard. If you haven't seen these draw on the whiteboard videos, they're very cool. And they did one of these for basically the summary of some of the ideas in this book. I saw that 8 years ago or so, and I thought it was great. Great little video on what motivates people to do things. And I just never was able to read the book. I just kept missing it, kept forgetting about it. And then I saw it on sale on Audible, as I mentioned before, for like $4 or $5 or something like that. And so I snatched it up, finally got to go through this one. And it's not nearly as good as the little 10-minute talk. And what I mean by that is the content of this book is a great talk. It's a great 45-minute, hour-long talk on what motivates people, what drives us. And you listen to it and you go, yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's true. That's the way I work. But then it does that, and it goes on for 4 or 5 hours in audiobook form, or it would be like 4, 5, 6 talks, when there's really about 60 minutes of great content in there, and then a lot of stuff you're like, okay, I get it. I get the point. I get what you're making. And the big idea is that people, the old idea of dangling a carrot in front of someone doesn't really motivate them. It's not a great motivator. It stops working at a certain point in time. If people are making enough that they're not worried about money, dangling 2 carrots in front of them doesn't make them go faster. And so things like, we're motivated by mastery. We want to be great at something. We're motivated by making an impact. Like, we want to be a part of something that matters and things like that. And that's a central premise. And I agree with all the central ideas of it, especially about myself and the way I'm wired. Like, you know, I'm not really motivated if you're going to give me a raise, but I'd be a part of something, have autonomy, things like that. So if you want the summary of it, you can check out this video right up here. Very cool little video, even if you're only mildly interested in what I'm talking about. But if you're into leadership type books, leadership concepts, definitely check out that video. Book number 3 of 2019, Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. So I've talked about it many times before that I haven't read the Harry Potter books before. Talked through all the movies, reviewed all the movies on my YouTube channel leading up to Fantastic Beasts 2. And one of the key things in there was like my perspective as a reviewer is someone that hasn't read the books. So once I finished going through the movies, I was like, you know, maybe I'll start going through the books now. Now that I've talked through them from this perspective as just as movies without background information, now let's slowly start going through them. So I think about 1 per month, I'm going to try and listen to one of the Harry Potter books and make it through them. And the thing that's kind of interesting about Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets is kind of how non-interesting the differences is between the book and the movie. The first 2 books and movies are very similar. There's like a couple of things in them where you're like, oh, that makes so much more sense, and it fills in so many gaps in the films. There've been a couple of times between the 2 books that I've gone through thus far, but nothing like big plot changes. And just in light of those couple of times, I can go, oh, I can see where the books start getting a lot longer. There's going to be some big changes. It makes a lot more sense what people have talked about. But yeah, I like the first book more. It seemed to kind of get to the point, or not necessarily get to the point, but a little bit more engaging as you're discovering this new world. And the second one seemed like more of the first one without being quite as engaging, I don't think. The story's, in theory, I think, better with the mystery involved in all of it, but just the newness of the first one I thought was better. And that's the same exact way I felt about the film as well. But because they're so similar, I was like, yeah, okay, my review of this book is about the same as my review of the movie. So that's that one. 4th completed book of 2019. This was a short one, A Tale of Three Kings. Now, this is a leadership book that somewhere along the way, I'd heard this one recommended, and then I saw other people recommend it, so I put it in my queue a long time ago, found it for like $3 on sale on Audible, and so picked it up. And so one of the ways I find books to go through is I follow on Twitter several different business accounts and leadership accounts, and they'll once a week, once every couple of weeks, post a list of leadership books you should check out. And that's one of the places that I read this one, actually a couple of times, I think, on several different lists. And check this one out. So if you don't know what this one is, it's a, and I didn't know what this one was. It's a book on biblical leadership, I guess, sort of, but told entirely through storytelling of looking at King Saul, King David, and Absalom. And looking at the different ways that they led, the choices that they made. It's very short, very quick little read or listen, and just establishing, like, tells a story and then kind of puts some sort of nugget of, like, puts a zinger line in there. And, you know, maybe it's just because the context I'm in, it didn't strike me as that impactful. Like, oh, it's so powerful, like leadership through storytelling. And then I was like, okay, didn't blow my mind or anything like that. But don't be domineering, be gracious, even be gracious when you're lowly and be gracious when you're in power. And even when you have the authority to squash things, maybe it's not always the best. It's just a bunch of things that seem like, okay, yeah, don't be a tyrant. I kind of already knew that one, you know, not bringing a lot of new stuff to the table. So I didn't care too much for that one, but even it's quick, so you can check it out quickly if you're looking for a different perspective, especially if you don't like didactic, just teaching, listing principles. If you learn through storytelling, this is a book on leadership through storytelling. I'm a lot more didactic. I like telling me more specifically stuff and bullet points and things like that. That's kind of the way I remember things. Fifth completed book of 2019. This one's not as much a book. I mean, even the title of it's not. But Letter from Birmingham Jail from Martin Luther King Jr., who was in jail, and he wrote a letter. And essentially, he was trying to bring more people on board with his cause, as some people were starting to become like, what are you doing? You're shaking things up a little bit too much. You just got arrested. If you're breaking the law and getting arrested, I'm not sure it's making the case that you're trying to make for convincing people that you're the good guys, that you're on the right side. If you're a criminal in jail, I'm not quite sure that's the case. And so he wrote this open letter to church leaders, to moderates, trying to see, like, no, there's far greater injustices than me peacefully protesting and getting arrested for it. I was arrested, but not justly. This is not, we weren't being violent. We weren't causing a scene. They were just trying to stop us. Therefore, they are making our point. They do not want to hear. They didn't. And so just kind of building the case for social change and things like this. And just very eloquently written, especially given the context under which it was written and all the details about all of that. Gives you a little picture, while not really being a history book, a glimpse from a person's perspective of a point in time of certain events that we've all heard about a little bit in history classes and then the news and things like that. So real powerful stuff, and in its own ways relevant to now, and other ways showing you how much things have changed, and other ways seeing how some of the language used today is still the same, and just interesting to just kind of hear it now in our current cultural context where there is a lot of racial tension. And so another one that's very short because it is just a letter. And so I'd encourage you to check this one out too. Once again, kind of get some perspective, some ideas that are not from our time about racial tensions from 50 years ago, and give you some insight. And the final one on here is How to Fail at Everything Yet Still Succeed. I actually didn't write the whole title of this one down, but it's from Scott Adams, the creator of Dilbert, who has in recent years become like his own version, like a political commentator on Twitter. It's a very strange story, but that's his whole story, which is kind of the How to Fail at Everything. He's this guy that just kind of a compulsive entrepreneur, compulsively just starts doing new things. And so he goes through his career and all the things he's done, and he like programmed multiple video games back in the 80s. And then he worked at several like phone companies for years and learned about Office. He created a something called the Dill Burrito. Basically, it was like a burrito that was fortified because he wanted to give back to... He's done all these crazy things, but he's most famous for being the guy that created Dilbert and wrote Dilbert. But he's like, I'm not a very good writer. I'm not really the funniest guy in the room normally, and I'm definitely not a very good artist, but I'm famous as a comedic writer, and I do my own drawings. And that's kind of what makes the book fascinating. I went through it last year, and of all the books I went through last year, it's the one that I started this year off, and I was like, I want to go through that one more and more time. And what I resonated with is that he's such a weird guy that he almost loops back around and becomes like normal again to me, and someone I can relate to and feel like, oh, okay, I kind of get this guy. And he talks a lot about very practical ways to be successful that aren't like, leadership books, not anything like that, but just real down to earth what he's actually done and what things that actually make people successful, and in a way that adds a certain humility to it and a certain level of talking about how successful he is. Just this very weird mix of everything that's just very interesting. I love the way he thinks and talks about things. And so he'll talk about the fact that the reason that he's able to be successful is that he has this stack of skills that are totally unrelated to one another. But because he knows a little bit about business, knows a little bit about selling things, knows a little bit about office culture, knows a little bit about drawing, knows a little bit about writing and business writing, knows a little bit about humor. You put those all together, and he knew a little bit about the internet right as the internet was starting, and he was able to snowball that into becoming this wildly successful cartoonist. And I listened to a lot of that, and I went, okay, yeah, that all resonates with me. Even my own little successes here and there in life, it's because I had this stack of skills that are unrelated to each other that I was able to kind of clump together and turn into something. He talks a lot about like cognitive biases and the way that we all mislead ourselves and believe things that are false because of the little ways that our brains work to kind of shortcut decision making, and just very pragmatic, practical advice for life that really can help anybody out. And the whole time going through his own story that's just bizarre. That he went 3 years where he wasn't able to talk, and he had all these ways that he tried to fix it. And I went through it a second year in a row. I went through this book, and of all the books I went through last year, which was over 60, the first one I decided to go back through, just a fascinating story, very practical, and ideas in there that I wanted to re-explore this year to keep my mind fresh because I found them helpful last year. Anyway, those are the 6 books that I went through last year. Check out a free Audible trial. You get a free audiobook out of it. So if you want to listen to one of these books, check out that audible.trials.com/Sean Chandler link down below. If you went through any books this year or month, tell me what you went through this. Let's have a nice discussion. Maybe you can recommend some books to me. I'd love to kind of hear from you guys what books I should check out. And as always, thank you so much for watching.